China's air pollution has been making global headlines for decades, but the past year has been so bad that people are calling it Airmageddon or Airpocalypse. Shanghai air is still far from pristine, but it's been easier to watch the pollution story from here as the rainy weather has kept the city relatively cleaner. But that's changing. Shanghai is suffering its dirtiest winter ever. Last month, the index measuring small airborne particles, or PM 2.5, a key gauge of air quality, shot up to hazardous levels. Thick smog has become the new normal. This comes as the notoriously smoggy capital Beijing is having a cleaner winter, resulting in a conspiracy theory by some expats that electricity production has been boosted in the south and cut back in the north to create a healthier environment for China's leadership. A Reuters analysis of steel, cement, and other metals production showed a drop in activity in the province around Beijing, but a pickup in areas around Shanghai in late 2013. But the main pollution culprit in Shanghai and the rest of China isn't factories or power stations, says Zhang Guoxun, director of the Center of Atmospheric Chemistry at Fudan University. It's cars.
If we don't take emergency action, the smog will get worse. I can predict it. 10 years ago, I told the Shanghai government they should limit the number of vehicles, but nowhere in China did that happen. Instead, we focused on development and it damaged the environment.
Even with pollution off the charts and the public outcry rising, officials seem reluctant to confront the problem. In Shanghai, the Environmental Authority last month weakened its air pollution standard to reduce the number of health alerts. Meanwhile, the central government has drawn mockery for recently classifying smog as a natural disaster. But when it's been severe enough to hamper air traffic, even some officials have to be wondering whether pollution could suffocate Shanghai's ambitions of becoming a global financial center.
China's air pollution issue first started back in the mid-1960s with the beginning of its Industrial Revolution. Since then, China has become the #1 emitter of greenhouse gases. It also burns the world's most coal. Because of the poor air quality in China, the average Chinese citizen's life expectancy has been lowered by 5.5 years. These deaths will continue unless we take action. Beijing lost an estimated $320 million in economic costs due to pollution in 2012.
The world's total greenhouse gas emissions have increased 75% since 1970, but China's has increased even faster, growing by 80% in half the time.
Many of us take our clean environment for granted. In the US, we never hear of anyone dying from causes attributed to our air, but in China, it's a routine problem. Thousands of people are dying every week and hundreds of thousands every year. China and its people need help right away, and together we can work to stop it, or else millions of people will die in the coming years.
Mao Zedong's economic campaign, The Great Leap Forward, is commonly credited with jump-starting China's failing economy in the 1950s. In the 1960s, about 60% of the Chinese labor force were employed in agriculture, and since the 1970s, China's industrial sector has been growing by 8% per year.
China burns nearly half of the world's coal, reaching 3.8 billion tons in 2011. Also, the highest PM 2.5 level ever recorded in New York was 29 micrograms per cubic meter, while the highest for Los Angeles was 43. Readings in Harbin this week topped 1,000.
Chinese scientists have warned that the country's air pollution is now so bad that it resembles nuclear winter, slowing photosynthesis in plants and potentially wreaking havoc on the country's food supply.
China had nearly 5.5 million vehicles on the road in 1990, but the number exploded to 70 million in 2010, and by 2020, China will have over 200 million registered cars.
Without a reform by 2025, China's air pollution could worsen by 70% and could be more than 6 times worse than the US's levels.
With 350,000 to 500,000 people dying every year from pollution in China, the world needs to act now to prevent further damage to the environment and the population.
The eastern part of China is heavily polluted because it is the center of industrialization. The west is just rural farms and villages. The east coast is notorious for pollution and has many cities with double the maximum amount of PM 2.5 allowed. Particles in the PM 2.5 size range are able to travel deeply into the respiratory tract, reaching the lungs. Exposure to fine particles can cause short-term health effects such as eye, nose, throat, and lung irritation, coughing, sneezing, runny nose, and shortness of breath. Exposure to fine particles can also affect lung function and worsen medical conditions such as asthma and heart disease. Scientific studies have linked increases in daily PM 2.5 exposure with increased respiratory and cardiovascular hospital admissions, emergency department visits, and death. Our organization is going to be selling gas masks for $9 to prevent further deaths and health hazards, and to raise awareness of this serious issue. We hope to help protect the Chinese citizens from the so-called Armageddon and ultimately end this issue altogether. We hope to spread these masks around the world to countries suffering from widespread pollution.
Together, we can help save the world and lives one mask at a time.
That's the truth.